Hey guys, it's Danny. Good morning, should I say. It's very early morning. You might hear some roosters singing and the little birdies singing outside. Perfect time of the day and perfect time to do a repot and hopefully, fingers crossed, also a dividing. I want to work a little bit with this Paphiopedilum today. Definitely needs a repot. It has been in here since 2022, February of 2022, so kind of 3 years and a bit, in a few months. It is time. I look at this medium, I don't like what I see. It's pretty horrible. So definitely needs a repot, and we did not repot a slipper orchid in a minute. But also what I want to do is also try to divide it, because I do want to share this with a special person, and I think she would absolutely adore this type of Paphiopedilum, but I'm not sure if we're gonna divide it. These types of orchids should be divided only in certain circumstances, which I will talk to you about today. And if you didn't know, slipper orchids could be safely divided. Well, the good news is, yes, they can. They are actually sympodial orchids. Am I a little underexposed? Hold on. Right, I think this is a little bit better because I see the orchid is dark. I have a dark shirt on, so dark on dark. Maybe you didn't fully see what I was doing here. So yes, Paphiopedilum orchids are actually sympodial orchids. I know they kind of look more like Phalaenopsis, but they're actually more like Oncidiums, if you will. They just don't have those very plump pseudobulbs. And here is where all the problem, quote unquote, starts. Because they don't have pseudobulbs to store up that moisture and energy, it is a little bit more delicate to divide such an orchid. Also, because they do not create pseudobulb after pseudobulb in such a fast manner as an Oncidium, these guys can actually be divided fan by fan. So you don't have to have like 3 fans per division or anything of the sorts. You can actually divide one single fan. But the rule is, if the fan does not have any root, then do not divide, because it will not survive. I would say maybe not 100% guaranteed, but most likely it will not survive, since it doesn't have that pseudobulb to store energy and nutrients. Or actually energy and moisture. Right, so first off, let's just see what's happening here. First, we must press a little bit on the pot to remove the roots, although these types of orchids, they're not very big root producers. And let's see what we have in here. Very, very old medium. I also pre-soaked this orchid beforehand because the roots of Paphiopedilum orchids are very fuzzy and they do tend to attach to medium very, very badly. So soaking them makes sure they expand a little bit, and it just makes everything easier to remove. It doesn't make everything not messy. Everything will be super messy, but it's okay. Right, so I'm gonna try as much as possible to remove as much of the medium as possible. Since it's very, very old, I do have a little bit of mold here and there on the roots, but it's okay. It's not the bad type of mold. It's just, it happens when medium gets very wet. Also, Paphiopedilum orchids really do need to stay a little bit wetter than other epiphytic orchids. These are not epiphytes. So the chances of developing some little molds here and there in the old medium are a little higher with Paphiopedilums, but that's okay. The roots look okay. And see what I mean? They do get really attached to this medium. And if you find sphagnum moss strands or even bark very, very attached to the roots, it's better to let them be. Roots of Paphiopedilums are not the strongest. They're also very brittle. When they're dry, they snap much easier. So another reason to wet the roots. And very, very gently, I'm just going to remove either, old leaves, either pieces of medium which are stuck to the roots. Sorry about the noise. Righty. So here is my orchid. Now, one thing you should know about Paphiopedilum orchids, apart from the fact that they bloom beautifully and they have one flower spike per fan, let's call it like that, it's a terminal spike, they will not rebloom again. And also, these, let's say, older mother plants will eventually die in time. And I have some very old mother plants right here in the middle. So in the end, the sections that have already bloomed will slowly and surely wither away. I will make a close-up here. So all you'll have left is a dried flower spike, a dried vit here, and a whole bunch of dried leaves. I can divide this and I'll show you better. So the way we divide such orchids is first make sure that the portions we want to divide, they have roots. And in my case, yes, they have some roots. Not too many, but they have some roots. I think we should be okay. Plus, like, this is falling already. So first, your fan needs to have roots. If it doesn't have roots, it will probably not survive. No matter how much you try to baby it, there are very high chances it will not survive. So wait for it to have roots. And if it doesn't have roots and you really must remove the spent mother plant, then you can cut the fan above the roots, like this. And at some point, whether you like it or not, you will have to make some sort of division because you will have a lot of dead stems here in the middle, which can harbor pests and they just don't look nice. And the way we divide them is actually pretty easy because the new plantlets, the new shoots, let's call them that, they are so flimsily attached. It's not like the rhizome of a cattleya or anything. It's very flimsy. If I do this too many times, they will just fall on their own. So go to the base of the orchid on the stems and see if you find a natural division point, and that's where you just pull. I want to see what I'm doing, sorry. I'm just gonna pull. I want to see just to make sure that I'm getting all the roots, and I didn't have to pull too much, really. And there we go. These are the new plantlets. I know I call them plantlets, it's not necessarily correct. These are the new shoots. Let's say it's the same orchid. It just looks like it makes babies, but it doesn't. Right, so here in the back I can show you dead plants from the past. One, it still has roots though, even though they don't look so great, and some of them are not alive anymore, most of them are. Now, unlike Oncidium, if you're trying to plant this shoot and expect new basal shoots to appear, you're not gonna have it. It doesn't work like an Oncidium, so it's not like a back bulb. This one is spent, is depleted. It just acts like support root system for the new growth. But this itself, you cannot propagate it like you would a back bulb. This one you could have, but it already produced new shoots. Usually Paphiopedilums produce new shoots before the older shoots bloom or they become dead. So the whole idea of back bulbs with Paphiopedilums is not gonna work out. This one is done, it's not gonna do anything anymore. However, and I'm just seeing it now, I didn't notice it before, this is an old plant that produced some new growth already, but it has another new growth here that I didn't see. It doesn't really have much of a root system because I shouldn't have removed this, but I didn't see the new roots. See, learn from my mistake. Inspect your Paphiopedilum very, very well before you remove the old growths, which have the root systems, because you might have a tiny, tiny growth just sprouting, and if you want to save it, you know, this is already very sketchy what I did here, because there's only one tiny root here. I might not even save it, I don't know, because I have the other two, it's fine. However, inspect your Paphiopedilum very, very well before going ahead and do that. Oops, it's done. It wanted to get away from me. I obviously enraged a little bit this orchid because it wants to run away from me. Anyway, so this is the old plant. Typically, if you don't see any other growth here, but you still have some roots, you can plant it separately. It might produce some new growth, it might not. It only depends on what it feels like doing. Mine has a little bit of a new growth here. I don't mind if I lose it, it's absolutely fine because I have two absolutely beautiful divisions here. These are the Paphiopedilum divisions. As you can see, they're not very young, and that's what I think I started to tell you. Slipper orchids will create new shoots even if the new shoot is creating is not fully mature, it's still actively growing, it might not even have enough roots, like in this case. This one decided, I'm just not gonna have too many roots, I'm gonna rely on the plant before it. It's a little bit tricky with Paphiopedilums. You have to see what type of case you're dealing with. These two growths, luckily enough, they did have roots of their own. So I'm very safe to pot these guys separately, and I'm very confident they will do okay. And before you pot them, you know, just make sure that you remove old sheaths. Make sure you're not overly vigorous with removing the potting mix from the roots because the roots are pretty sensitive. I'm gonna set this aside here. This one has some leaves that look a little suspicious. I'm gonna remove these too, and you know, if it has dried sheaths at the bottom, I'm gonna remove them. Check for dead roots. Mine actually didn't have much dead roots, just I think one here on the old growth. This one looks very, very well. I can go ahead and pot this one separately and this one separately, and we are good. This one, you know what, I'm not even gonna faff around with it because it's probably not gonna do so well. This was my mistake and I'll take responsibility for it. But I think I can do what I planned to do. I have 2 plantlets, one that I will keep and one that I will give away, and that is, or was, the point here. You know what, I'm gonna go and wash a little bit this pot because I think I'm gonna keep it for the bigger division, and I'm gonna try to find a little bit of a tinier pot, or yeah, maybe a little bit of a tinier pot for this one. At this point, I'm not gonna go wash the roots or anything. The less I handle these plantlets, the better. I'm not even gonna spray with hydrogen peroxide because I don't have pests in the medium. I have a little bit of mold here, but that is okay. With fresh new medium, this shall be addressed. No worries about that. Did I tell you this is the Paphiopedilum delenatii? I'll put like a tag on the screen before I start. And yeah, let me just find another pot and wash this one a little bit, and then I will be right back with potting. Alrighty, we're back. I actually brought some more pots from the greenhouse, and I have found 2 tinier pots, and I just want to see which one would be better suited for this orchid. Yeah, I'm gonna use this one. Paphiopedilum orchids do not do good with dry conditions. As I was saying, they are what I like to call semi-terrestrial. Paphiopedilums typically, and you know, the majority of the ones we grow, they grow either like on the bottom of the forest where you don't actually have soil, you just have an accumulation of leaves and branches. It's still very airy and fluffy. Either they grow lithophytic on some rocks that are covered in mosses and other plants, and again, it's not heavy soil, but it's not bare rock either. So at the end of the day, it might be a little incorrect of me to say they're semi-terrestrial. What the heck is even that? But it gets the point across, which, you know, this is the point of my channel, not to be the most I like to go by science, but not to speak in the most scientific terms. I just want to be a little bit more friendly so that everybody can understand me. And also speak in a way that is very, I don't want to say the word because YouTube might flag it for no good reason. In a way that explains, right? A lot. Just by describing it with a word, it explains a lot about the orchid. I'm also going to be using slow release fertilizer just so my friend doesn't have to fertilize this plant. It will be for a year at least, no problem, fertilized. One thing when you pot Paphiopedilums is to make sure the base of the stem is a little bit buried. And hey presto, we are done. And I really wanted to use a transparent pot so that my friend knows when to water this orchid. It can be tricky to maintain these guys damp almost at all times. They do not like to be dry for long periods of time, and transparent pots help you a lot, especially if you've never had slipper orchids. So don't be afraid to use transparent pots. Even if these guys are semi-terrestrial, the roots will not fuss about the light. You can even have it like that. They will absolutely have no issue with light. They will still swirl around the pot, you'll see. They do have an issue with dryness though. So again, as I was saying, some of these orchids don't really grow, you know, buried in the soil. So if there's a little bit of light peeking through, reaching the roots, they will not mind it. And I do believe in their natural habitat that this happens because they're not buried in the soil. Let me just pot this one really quickly as well, and then I'll come back with some more thoughts. Okay, so this might look a little bit too buried, but it's such like a tight, compact little stem that it's better to be like this. It's gonna be okay, trust me. So what I'm gonna do now is water them, and they are done. I'm gonna water them pretty thoroughly because these guys do not like to be dry. This is the orchid that I will keep. You will say, oh, it's so buried. It's not. It actually has a very short stem and the roots are starting to appear already. I see them from like here, right here. So I had to do this. Fear not though, the last layers are very airy. They will not be overly wet for this orchid. But you can see, yeah, this is okay. And also, this little orchid appears a little bit safer, more safe for comfort, right? This is how you should bury a Paphiopedilum. I know, it looks a little too much, but it's fine, trust me. And especially if you make sure that the last layer will stay a little bit more dry, you're absolutely fine. And we are done. We divided our Paphiopedilum orchid, and I know it hasn't been as fluid as other like tutorials, but this was not necessarily meant to be a tutorial. I didn't like pre-script it or anything. I kind of just went in because I knew. With Paphiopedilums, you never know what you're gonna get. It's always a little bit tricky. That's why I really wanted to film it as well. And you gotta wing it. Whatever the case you find with your Paphiopedilum, you gotta adapt to it. They're a little bit more unpredictable, I find, than Oncidiums and definitely Phalaenopsis for sure, but it can be done, and I hope this video in this instance and my mistakes and my good things help you out in paying attention from the get-go to some stuff that you need to pay attention that I didn't, and everything I did hopefully will inspire you and help you out when you next will repot or divide your Paphiopedilum orchid. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed hanging out with me today. And with that said, I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye!